Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. This is Mag Pierre from InstantMediations.com. Welcome to the series Mediation in the Times of the Pandemic.
Hello, my name is Natalia Olowska Pierre, and I am joining from Warsaw, Poland. And this is the first of the pieces of the series we created to uplift mediators in the difficult time of pandemic. And I hope that we will be able to make the best use of everybody's time and the best use of the vast knowledge and everything that comes with it and experience of our beautiful and fantastic speakers, out of which Tye Boudony is the first one with whom we are starting our series. But before I enable Tye to say hi, I want to say a few words about Tye. Tye Boudony is a professional mediator who runs the non-profit organization, the Mediation Center of Central Florida, Incorporated, which works to make mediation accessible for all Floridians. After graduating from the Barry University School of Law, Tye worked as the 9th Judicial Circuit's courthouse staff mediator from 2010 through 2017. After leaving his state position, he began mediating with various state and local agencies, such as the Department of Financial Services, Department of Agriculture, as well as the Osceola, Orange, and Hillsborough County Bar Association foreclosure mediation programs. Tye also provides continuing mediation and legal education, virtual seminars, as well as throughout Florida, while also certifying mediators as a primary mediation trainer, with both the Mediation Training Network as well as with the Mediation Training Center from Florida. But having said that, it's good to know that Tye already conducted more than 2,000 mediations in the family law itself. That gives you really a vast experience, and we are happy to have you. Please have a word first before we start the interview.
You make that sound so much better than if I said it myself. And thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. And yes, it does sound like a lot of mediations. But you know, when you're a staff mediator, you just get lucky. I got lucky, to be quite honest with you. And you mediate every day, 2-3 times a day, and it adds up. But what a great way to get experience. So I was really lucky, and I'm honored to be here today. So thank you for asking me.
Thank you so much.
Great. So Tye, as a mediator, where do you find, or how do you find yourself right now, both personally and professionally, in this mediation in times of the pandemic?
What a great question. And my gosh. Woof, how much time do we have? But I'll keep it brief. Well, because it just changed our world, didn't it? I mean, literally, figuratively, and professionally too. So I was when it started, right? I was in the middle with a training group, and so you know, our heads were in the training mode, so to speak. And so we were already asking ourselves questions such as, you know, how best will our formats be? Should we be doing them online? Should we be doing them in person? Back when everything was primarily in person, right? And then the pandemic happens. And it was like a watershed moment for mediation. I say that a lot, but I really think it was. I mean, since then, I am, in essence, I have been mediating entirely virtually. All trainings have been virtual, right? My world has, in essence, become virtual. And over the past year, just everything about my life in some ways has changed personally. And then, of course, we're not to get into politics, but in being in America, we're inundated from the left and from the right with all these personal issues, and then professionally, everything stopped in the courthouses in Florida in any regard, and how do you move forward? And so because of where I was in my training perspective, I recognized, okay, this is just as I think, you know, yourself and Mac, Natalia and Mac, I think you were, before the pandemic, you were already working on how mediations will be done virtually and thinking about that. Well, we were forced to think about that. I recognized. And so I started reaching out to every single case that was in the courthouse docket in my, just in the Ninth Circuit, and that's 2 courthouses. So there was plenty of reaching out to do. I didn't even have to go farther than those 2 circuits. And I just started reaching out to all of the mediation. Imagine how many attorneys I've mediated with while I was the staff mediator. And then every single, so luckily you can look everything up. You can look up the dockets, and I was able to see every case that was in essence postponed. And I reached out to all of them. And so I believe I would tell you that I was probably one of the first mediators. I couldn't be the first. Of course, there must have been others, but there weren't many, I don't think, who started reaching out and to everybody whose case was stalled and saying, listen, I'm happy to mediate with you. Luckily, I knew how to use Zoom, and it was a very easy transition for me. I think it was a tough transition for many attorneys who just, no one was using Zoom like this, like regularly, not for court processes. And so there was a big adjustment period, but it has, as horrible as it is to say, and with respect to all of the deaths and the suffering throughout the world, which I wish didn't happen, was the best thing that ever happened to my practice. I've never been busier. I mediate entirely virtually now. I mean, daily. I have mediations or I have trainings in a way that I was never busy before. And I would tell you, while it's a little frustrating, while it's a little, I mean, in the beginning, a little nerve-wracking, and change is difficult for everyone, right? Now, mediators, I think we kind of, it's one of the things that we deal with on a daily basis, right? Change. We're helping people deal with change. And so I want to say, hopefully I was able to deal with my change better because I saw it as opportunity. And it has had the effect of just changing everything that mediators do, and in some ways the court does, and many of the attorneys, right? Our entire practice is entirely different now. It's a new business model, and as a trainer, right, everything is virtual now. And so even the Dispute Resolution Center of Florida, that is the state agency that oversees the practice of mediation and certifies mediators via the Supreme Court, everything changed with respect to how they told us all we could do things. So whereas before there could be some virtual aspects of training, but many aspects had to be done in person. Everything can be done virtually now. Many of the if you become a mediator, right, there are training requirements that you have to, a lot of those have been relaxed. So the pandemic has just affected us amazingly. But as a mediator, as a practitioner, it's benefited the practice of mediation, I would say. And that's just a weird thing to have to say, but it is the truth. In the Ninth Circuit, where I'm at, in Central Florida, for instance, so before the pandemic, I want to say, I believe the company is Modria, right? And I think it's Amazon, correct me if I'm wrong, Amazon and eBay. If there were disputes, you could have ODR, online dispute resolution, and there was some form of artificial intelligence that would help the parties by asking questions or what have you. What's my point? There are, I believe, 5 circuits in Florida. It's 3 or 5 that are now practicing with ODR as well. And so first the parties are communicating via email to see if they can resolve things. And then if they can't, and these are, I believe, small claims cases, and then a mediator will step in. But the point is, it is changing the practice of mediation entirely. When would Zoom have become standard for us? 5 years, 10 years? I have no idea. But over the course of 1 year, it has entirely changed the way we practice, the way we look at practice. It's changed everything.
Having said that, you used the very powerful word change.
Change.
I think that this is actually what defines this entire year of the pandemic. There were so many changes. But if we were to look at mediation as a process in particular, how did this process change because of the pandemic, because of the tools we use?
So I at first, everybody was worried, right? In my circles. How is this going to affect mediation? Is it going to, I think the worry was that virtual mediation somehow was not going to have the same impact. It wasn't going to, mediators were not going to be able to facilitate the same way. People were not going to be able to participate the same way, that somehow we were going to have not as effective a process. And I have not found that to be the case. On the contrary, I think what we're finding is that it enables mediation to happen in such a way that it is, I think it's a beneficial. I think this has been one of the best things that's happened to mediation, because as you then start going through the process, we can then, well, 6 months later, how have things been going? Now, almost a year later, how have things been going? And so when I mediate for the Department of Financial Services, those are primarily insurance mediations. Now, when you're looking at an insurance mediation, for instance, what are the parties? Okay, you have insureds, and they're represented by either attorneys or public adjusters. And then you have insurance companies, right? Now, insurance companies are a weird bunch of individuals and entities that typically would always want to meet in person, right? I would love, before the pandemic, I would love to be able to do telephonic mediations. Zoom wasn't even an option. We weren't even thinking that way. Why? Just because I wouldn't have to drive an hour or 4 and then have to drive back an hour or 4, or stay somewhere in another part of Florida for 2 or 3 mediations over the course of, 2 days. And so the convenience, right? The productivity, the saving in money, the savings in time, even insurance companies. So I like asking, this is an important question, because I wonder, well, when the pandemic is over, I hope we're rounding the curve. What is my profession going to look like? How are we going to be mediating moving forward? And I've become quite spoiled. I mean, this is my home office. I live here more than anywhere else. And I do a mediation in any part of Florida, right? Or any part of the country, any part of the world. I recently had a mediation with someone in Florida and someone in Okinawa. Thank you, Zoom, right? And as soon as I'm done, well, I can take care of some administrative issues, or I can do something that my wife might ask me, has on my list of things to do. I'm not trying to make any kind of joke there in case my wife sees this. I'm happy to do them. But the point of the matter is, then I can come right back and I can mediate another case. I can do any one of a number of other administrative things, and I can do another mediation. I can, no more travel time, right? Fees are less. The convenience to the parties, right? You can mediate if you're a party. When you go to mediation, you're typically nervous. No one likes to go to court. No one likes attorneys. Let's be honest, right? People don't know what the mediator is, so they're nervous, they're worried. But at the very least, now when you mediate, you can be in a comfortable setting, right? And so my sense is, what I found is that it has had overall a good effect on individuals, that they can take part in mediation better than they could before, because they're still nervous, they're still worried. But if it comes down even a little bit, that helps. Then as the mediator, I'm more productive. I can do more. I think I can do more in a better way. Companies, they're saving money, they're saving time. I think overall, everybody is seeing that it's a benefit. Now, will every case stay virtual? No. I think we're going to see some kind of hybrid, but I just don't see why we're going to go back to the old model. Change is good, right? And this is here to stay, and it's only going to get better and better. It's going to get more fine-tuned, but it has been a benefit, I would tell parties, to on both sides, as well as to not only the mediator, but to the practice of mediation. And it hasn't made it worse. It's nuanced it. There are other challenges, but flexibility is a mediator's middle name. And I think it has shown us, it has helped us move into the future a lot faster with some bumps, but hey, that's how we learn, I think. I think it's been a great thing. I think I went all over the map on that answer, didn't I?
No, it's okay. It's actually very insightful. Every time I speak to you, I always think of something a little different. I appreciate that perspective from Florida, definitely. So in these difficult times, how do you deal with the strong negative emotions that might be in some of our parties during mediations? And, because people may be frustrated, they may be lonely. Coronavirus and the pandemic has brought out a lot of strange emotions in many of us. How have you dealt with that when you're doing mediations?
That's an interesting question. So I think that we're still mediating, right? We're still, some things don't change, right? Now, I think it will impact, I do a lot of family mediation. So now we see new issues, right? Issues of parents not being able to have the same kind of time sharing that they've had before. One parent, so for instance, in my family, I seem to be the redheaded stepchild, the black sheep that is, I'm very in tune to what's the proper way to do things. We shouldn't be traveling or this, or we should wear masks. Everyone else in my family is, and I think this has a broad ranging kind of, everybody is kind of acting this way. The question is, how do we, especially a year on, not only there's a pandemic fatigue, so to speak, people are just, they just want to move forward. And so it creeps its way in mediation as well, right? Either, whether it be opinions, right? And so then I have to, one, not let my opinion in any way influence, but we're always dealing with that, right? As mediators. But when that comes in, how is it affecting the mediation? So in ancillary ways, it has effects on the mediation. It has, I would tell you, it's the main reason why we're meeting this way. So even underlying, even when we're not talking about it, it's all because of it. Here we are. And sometimes it impacts a lot more, and sometimes it impacts it subtly. And I think it's case by case. For me personally, I hope that I have adapted quite well. Again, I wish it wasn't at the expense of the death and the suffering, but I'm quite happy with where my practice has gone and where we find ourselves. I'm so lucky, to be quite honest with you, to practice the way I do. But it's not always the case. Others don't always feel that way. There are negative impacts that find their way into mediation. And so as the mediator, we just never know, right, how people are going to be affected. And so I find myself in unexpected ways dealing with issues surrounding, the pandemic, whether it be for any one of a number of reasons. How does the pandemic affect the way we do things from a business perspective, from a personal perspective? And so when I'm mediating, like all the rest of us with people, their lives have been affected by the pandemic, and it creeps its way into what their responses are. Sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's negative, but I think overall, everything we do nowadays has been in some way affected by this. For us, in this, as the way we're training, for instance, I mean, we would never have been able to have gotten together. We wouldn't be here right now. Training isn't the way it is. I would tell you, those have been positive things. We're in different parts of the world right now, and this has enabled this. Where would, for instance, Natalia and Mac, when you were talking about what your vision was, where would you be if not for the pandemic? I mean, it's a weird way of saying it, right? But where would my practice be if not for the pandemic? I'd still be driving around. So for us, I think it's been very positive. And I'm not thankful for it. I am not thankful for it. But, you know, I have benefited from it. And I don't know how to put that in a way that, that doesn't sound, you know, well, it's not self-serving, but I think you understand, you know, that what a weird time and place that we find ourselves. And we have to find a way to make it fit. And that's what our job is anyway, right? And,
yes.
So.
And this is where my next question to you goes, because you've adapted so well to the change that was brought to you. Do you have any advice to other mediators, how they can reach out to clients in this time when sometimes people due to lockdown were locked in their homes? How can you persuade other mediators, encourage them to go online, to try that, not to be scared?
Yeah, I think that's it right there, right? Not to be scared. Change is a fact of life, one, but it's tough for all of us. And so there are some mediators who, look, you have to know how to mediate virtually now. You have to be able to know how to run Zoom efficiently. You need to be able to facilitate well virtually. You need to have good capabilities. Your computer needs to be sufficiently, you have to have the sufficient amounts of you know, memory and capability. You have to be connected via an Ethernet cable directly to your network. You have to have a backup battery in case the power goes out, right? You need to be able to offer a seamless virtual experience. You need to know how to anticipate it, right? You need to know how that affects your opening statement, right? I can't see anybody around you. So now I have to worry about third parties, right? I have to address that in a way that I never had to address it before. There are so many, so mediators are normally juggling a lot of balls. Now they threw like 7 balls at us at one time, and you have to catch them and keep on juggling them and keep on moving forward. It's changed everything. That means it changes your practice, and you either adapt and flourish, or you stay where you are and you are not going to move forward in a way. Look, the economy now for a mediator, it is a virtual economy as well. And if you adapt, and if you recognize you need to know what you don't know. You have to continually train and be open. You're going to be left behind, right? You have to train. You have to get ahead of that learning curve. You have to now reach out in different ways. I think my marketing has changed. Vlogging, I never did anything like that, you know, before. Why didn't I? Well, just because this changed everything, and it made me start seeing things in different ways. You know, now some things don't change. I think for a mediator, how do you get business as a mediator? Very hard to get business as a mediator. And even if one day, as you mediate, the day comes when all of a sudden you start seeing that your phone is ringing more than it was ringing before. Great, that's awesome, and that takes a little while, but still there are things you need to do. And you virtually now, I think you have to be on LinkedIn. I think you have to be reaching out in different, more sophisticated ways. You have to get in front of attorneys on a regular basis. And what other opportunity, but how do you get in front of those attorneys on a regular basis, right? Because they're the ones who give you regular business. And then what opportunities are there outside of your own? So in Florida, you can speak in terms of circuits. I assume MAC and those American mediators, is it the same in different states? But regardless, you can think now outside of your circuit. You can think of, now I look at mediation easily throughout the entire state, if not the entire country, right? Now, we're not there yet. I'm not there yet, but I'm easily now throughout the entire state, easily. And I can look at the way we're talking now, right? So how long is it going to be before I have more cases between a Floridian and someone in Okinawa? And now that was a military case. It's a little different, of course, but I was able to do it seamlessly, flawlessly, not a problem, right? When they said, oh, but I said, I can take care of that, don't worry. But in the future, what's it going to look like? So I think those that are recognize what's going on and will adapt, because change is difficult even for professionals, you'll be able to flourish, and there are more opportunities for us, and we have to be open to that, and you need to make yourself be comfortable with what's uncomfortable, and we grow that way, right? And so they need to grow, and they need to be comfortable with virtual mediation, and they need to know how to enable it, and just grow, and then the rest will come, right? But you got to move that way. You have to. There's no choice. Even courts. I mean, how is it in Texas, Mac? For instance, Natalia, how is it? Well, Natalia, I think you indicated to me that they don't use Zoom, right, in your courthouse, in your courtrooms. But Mac, they do they not, in your courtrooms? And they do in Florida as well. So, right, like it or not, it's here. And so, you have to adapt in order to be able to move forward with it, and your practice will benefit from it as well. I was all over the map on that one too. My apologies.
Well, the fifth question was similar to the fourth one, which is, how do you persuade people to go online? But I think you basically answered it. So I wanted to, ask you a different question that's not on our list, and that is, what predictions do you have? In 5 years back, if you watch this video, I wonder what you'll think. But what predictions do you think, exist in the future for Zoom mediations?
Well, I wish I would have bought Zoom stock, right? So for instance, others must be Teams, for instance, right? I don't like mediating in Teams. It doesn't have the flexibility that Zoom does, but that's not going to last, right? There will be other forums. And so what's the next forum going to be? And will it be better? And so is it going to be Zoom? I just don't see how all the others do not want to compete for this business that everybody is on. Zoom is, I think right now, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'd love to hear if there are any others but Zoom is the way we do it. Teams is done, yes, but that I have found that larger organizations like to use Teams because it's already embedded in, logistically, it's already embedded, so it's easy for them, but it doesn't facilitate good mediation when you need to caucus, right? And so I would tell you, there have got to be who's Zoom's competitor, and will that technology be better? So, will we still be on Zoom? Will we be with another platform? I hope that there will be, because it should make Zoom better, and maybe there'll be a better platform. Will we be? How will virtual mediation? Because it's got to mature, right? As we're working through it now, all the kinks and the problems and the issues, those will be resolved, and then it'll get us to the right. It's always a constant evolution, everything that we do, and so. What will the model look like once the pandemic, and I can't even I'm done with this pandemic, but so what's this hybrid model that we're all talking about that mediation is going to look like, right? Which mediations are going to be in person? Which mediations are going to be, better suited for virtual? How is that going to affect the court as well? And now there are some in Florida, right? You have case status hearings. Now, why can't we do those? Why can't you do those via Zoom? Those are just so I would think for judicial economy, right? Virtual is great. It should ease the caseload. It should have a greater impact on the judicial system. Just in our country alone, what will that look like for all the different, judicial systems in different countries? And then how will the practice of mediation evolve? And so again, like when I was just yesterday, we had a trainers meeting, and the word that came out was hybrid model. So it's going to be in person and it's going to be virtual, but what's it going to look like? That's interesting. My sense is everybody likes the convenience. So I don't see how it's going away. How is that then going to change? How does that change? Not just society in a way, right? Because there's something about this. There's something about this virtual model. And now we know, well, you can work from home. I can work from home. I work from home, you know, and so how is that going to change the social dynamic at the very least? For mediators, right? Sure. So professionally, what's our practice going to look like? Technology, from a technology perspective, what do we, man, I want to buy that stock in that other company. I want to buy that, you know, as soon as I can see it. But being ready for what that looks like. So those two answers, I think, are there's nothing easy about them, but I can see those. And I just wonder, training, from a training perspective, right? That's got to be hybrid as well. By the same token, we were also talking yesterday. So the DRC and other organizations, let's be honest, when you have those big events are moneymakers. So, and those individuals, that they still have a bottom line. So I'll bet you that there's still going to be an in-person component from a practical perspective, if not a business model perspective, but virtual is not going away. So the question is, how is it going to integrate? And it will integrate in ways that are going to improve our processes, right? Because even though we don't like change, the fact of the matter is that we adapt well. That's one of our, you know, along with these thumbs, we have the ability to adapt, continue to do so. And so it should be, mediation will evolve even better and more so. And our practices, like, remember when I was talking about those 5 circuits in Florida that are playing around with ODR. If they're playing around with ODR, that is here to stay as well. So now how is that going to, because ODR is a little different than what we do, right? I'm here, I facilitate, we all facilitate. ODR is a little different though, right? You have, so I think and it worked pretty well apparently, like for these business disputes. Because sometimes, so apparently based on what the business dispute is, the computer or the AI knows, okay, these are the kinds of questions I can ask. And then based on those responses, like a decent percentage of those cases were actually handled. So what is that? So when small claims now go to ODR, if they're practicing with it in Florida, some of that is going to stay with us. So that means the way that people mediate their cases is going to be practiced in that some kind of model in that respect. So it's just changing everything. And I think we can taste it a little bit, but the rest of it, I think we're doing it now. We're changing it now. So it's a little hard to predict with any kind of specificity. And I think I went all over the map on that one too. And I'm going to leave it there.
That's great. But because actually that leads me to another question, which is, will you see the future of mediation actually wrapping around technology? And you must have heard a lot of people already complaining about technology being everywhere. And some mediators even fear that it can replace, or it can't replace actually, the human interaction. So how not to get overwhelmed by the technology? What is your recipe for that?
Yeah, it makes our practice better. It makes us better. So I think it's about becoming comfortable with our relationship and integrating it well, rather than we can't fight it's coming, it's here, right? And so if we embrace and adapt along with it, then it is a better process, and it will enable and benefit everyone better. I think fear of change and the unknown is really at the heart of a lot of the concerns. Like I spoke earlier about, everybody was worried about, how it will affect mediation. Well, I haven't seen it. I've seen it have a benefit. So my sense is people will see those benefits, and they'll recognize them, and that will enable us to, flow with it better than not. I think. Don't worry. On the contrary, embrace how everything can help you rather than, rather than be detrimental in any way. We'll never be replaced. Even though I would just, we're talking about ODR, and that's a percentage. You still need the thing about a mediator, right? The thing that makes us all valuable is what makes a mediator better is experience. The more you mediate, the better you get, because every time you come across something, it gives you a little more understanding of that dynamic. And so you'll never see that particular case again, because even though cases are maybe similar, it's people that make them different each and every time. And so one of the best tools a mediator has is I call it a mediator's instinct, or your mediator's gut, or I'm also a geek. So when my mediator spider sense goes off, that's my intuition telling me, okay, go here, go there. No technology, not for a while, is going to be able to replace that. A mediator is for what we do. An experienced mediator is irreplaceable in some ways, but it can enhance our practice, right? Where our computers and technology can help the process, I think that's a great thing. We should embrace it, but it can only make us better mediators, and we shouldn't worry about the negative effects, because we'll overcome those, right? And we will keep what's good, and we will. Now I'm thinking of Bruce Lee. Why? So I have a picture of Bruce Lee up here. He was actually quite a philosopher. And so he said, adapt what is useful, reject what is useless, and add what is specifically your own. Can we not? Can we not see how that applies right here, right? What are the good things of this, of technology? What are the bad things? Let's keep what's good, let's let go of what's bad, and then let's add our own to it. And for me, with training, I add me to it, right? So we all do in our own respects. So again, I know I go everywhere, but I'm more hopeful than worried in that regard. I don't think it's a negative. I think it's a positive.
Thank you for that. So our last question on the list is, typically at the end of the mediation process, the parties might settle their case, or they might have an impasse, or they may have something in between, whether it's a recess or partial mediation settlement. So in the virtual world, in the age of the pandemic, how do you overcome an impasse in the online world?
So, I would tell you, I don't know necessarily that it changes anything in that regard. What I mean by that is, an impasse is still an impasse. A continuation is still a continuation. If anything, looking back over my recent cases, I just had several, as a matter of fact, that were continuations of, for whatever reason, we couldn't fix it, or sometimes when you're in mediation, you get to an issue, and that issue just isn't ripe in that moment to be decided for any one of a number of reasons. Either there needs to be more discovery, or somebody needs to give something to someone, or the thing we've been talking about, well, we need to give it a little time to see how it works out, and why don't we meet in the future? And then the parties can let me know, or let each other know, did it work, did it not work, and then how best to move forward from there. So if anything, I would tell you, it just helps the process be a little more fluid and a little more seamless, because there are just less things to worry about when I don't have to worry about travel. I don't have to worry about a lot of logistics with this virtual world. So if anything, I would say in subtle ways, it enables things. It makes it easier for us to meet virtually. So the last mediation I had this past week was a second virtual mediation, and the parties weren't sure if we needed to come back, because the attorneys were going to try and fix it amongst themselves. And then if they didn't fix it amongst themselves, they recognized that second one is either going to be long or it's going to be short, right? And so we were able to put it in between other things that both attorneys' offices had to do, knowing that so if anything, right? No one had to travel. We were able to fit it somewhere really fast in a way that enabled everyone to move forward. So it was beneficial to the process, right? Because would we have been able to meet really, really quickly if we had to do it in person? No, there's nothing quick about two attorneys, a mediator, two parties meeting for how long would it take to travel to that one place, right? And one was in Tallahassee and one was in Miami. I mean, before this, how would this have maybe a telephone conference? But this is better than a telephone conference, right? And like, for instance, Natalia's suggestion of let's get on speaker view. I like speaker view where mediation is concerned. Why? Because when we're in gallery, it's very hard for me to see your facial reactions. I can see them, but in speaker view, I'm a lot closer and you're a lot closer to me. And it's almost like I'm in person. Now, I actually did an in-person mediation recently because let's be honest, it was a lot of money. So I find people are more willing, even a mediator like me, I'm like, look, so long as everyone wears masks, sure, I'll do it for $2,000, and so we did it. But what I found was everyone had a mask on and I had a hard time seeing their face. And a mediator, there's so many cues that an experienced mediator looks for. And so I can see how, when you're talking to me, how your face and how you do things. And so I was having a hard time. If I can't see you smile, if I can't see you frown, so when I have a mask, it kind of, it inhibits mediation in some nuanced ways. So, I would tell you that it's a good thing, right? The flexibility that this online virtual world gives us is a good thing for the mediation process. It's a little less personal, but the benefits far outweigh that small inconvenience or negativity. So case by case, it depends on what's going on, but I think it's typically better than not, if I answered that question the right way, Mac.
Well, no, I just wrote that down, actually, how face masks actually can hinder the mediation.
Yeah.
It's done in person.
Weird. Isn't that weird?
And
Yeah,
by the way, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Mark. The way you started covering your mouth like with a mask, you also changed your voice.
Yeah.
Oh, and this is really incredible how much it also hides in the tone of your voice.
Yeah.
And in the online environment, we keep having it.
Yeah.
So this
look at Jeff, right? He looks different now. Think about it. I'm so glad he did that. So in mediation, when everyone is like that, it's a little weird, right? It's a little surreal. It just changes things. And I like this. I like mediating without masks, to be quite honest with you. And unless we're going to put plexiglass in front of everybody, this is the solution.
Or you're going to be, in one of my mediations, we were literally sitting so far from each other. Like, hello.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yeah. Like, so could everybody please? I mean, it's a little crazy.
It's like focusing already because you just barely hear what they say.
Yeah.
But one last question to wrap up with our fantastic interview, and we're grateful for it. It is going to be a personal one. How do you do that? Being this portion of optimism you are, this portion of energy and smile that you offer, which I could see with my own eyes, also to people in mediation. How do you do that?
Thank you for saying that. And I would tell you that, the thing that's great about mediators is we're all different, each and every one of us, right? We all bring our uniqueness in some way to what we do, and sometimes, a lot of times, it can make a difference. And so I'm one of those touchy-feely kind of emotional, intelligent kind of folks, and I have found that that old saying, nice guys finish last. What I found in mediation, being a nice guy, actually people kind of like it. That that emotions are high in mediations. People are worried, people are upset. And if you can help them feel just a little better, if you can help them feel just the way I listen to you, just the way I smile, just the way I talk to you, if I can bring your anxiety down, and if you trust me, then you'll trust the process, and you'll let me lead you to agreement, if possible. It's not always possible, but sometimes. So I call it my my bedside manner, right? Just like a doctor. Well, I mean, if you went to law school and you graduated, you're a doctor. My mom says not a real doctor, but the fact of the matter is, if I can help parties because of my because of my demeanor, then it's half the battle sometimes, right? If from the very beginning, from the very first moment they see you, you are on. And if you treat them like the way you would treat a family member or someone you care about, if you treat them with respect, if you're transparent, if you're a nice person, right? It's mirroring as well, right? It's infectious. It's like a yawn, right? People they want to feel good. They want to be understood. They want to, and so the way I normally am, you know, I think is a benefit to mediation. And so, you know, being a nice guy has actually benefited me in mediation. I would tell you that I have a natural ability. And when I say every time I train, there's always one or two people or three people that just kind of naturally have this way about them that serves the process well, right? Now, anybody, just be yourself. I think that's really what it is, right? As a mediator, if you're experienced and you have good tools and you know how to be yourself and still be professional, but still make it a little more personal, right? And not stuffy, people will react really well to it. And more often than not, it has a very positive effect on the mediation. And I would tell you that I have been able to help folks just feel like things are going to be okay. And then things wind up being a little more okay. And, you know, sometimes I feel like I have a superhero suit underneath my business attire because we can make a big difference. And so, you know, what we do every day, you have to kind of like it. I love what I do. So I've been lucky. Like I said earlier, I got really lucky that I was able to, you know, get a job as a staff mediator. Those are not the easiest jobs to get, right? But being a mediator is, I'm well suited to be a mediator, right? Luckily I found this profession, and it allows an individual who can be personable, who has good emotional intelligence, skills that anybody can work on, right? But if you can connect with the people going through some of the worst times in their lives, family, foreclosure mediations, if you can make them feel like it's going to be okay, they will respond well. And even if you can't settle the case, you can make it okay for them or easier for them. And it feels good. You know, I also am, when I help people, I feel really, really good. So I love being a mediator. This is a profession where you can make a difference as a lawyer, sure, but you can do things in mediation that you can't do in the courthouse, right? If everybody agrees, of course, and if it's legal, of course. But it's just it works well for me, and I've been able to, you know, flourish because I can be me, you know. And so when a mediator can find that balance, I think it's good for the process, it's good for the parties, and it's good for the mediator. So, you know, I do it because that's who I am, and it comes back, and it pays me back. You know, it makes me feel really, really good. So I can do this all day long, and the time flies, right? Because I can talk. But before you, like I would start in the morning at 8:30 in the morning, and I would get out at 5, and I'd start And then I'd be talking all day and I'd look up, woof, it's 5 o'clock. My day would fly by. So I enjoy what I do. And when you enjoy what you do, you're lucky, and others will, you can influence others. And so, I love doing what I do. And because I love doing what I do, I hope I'm good at it. And because I'm good at it, it reinforces it. It's a good, circular, thing to be stuck in. And so I hope to get better, at it. And now I want to train people. And I've found that that the same thing applies, right? If you bring an energy to it, people, it's kind of like a yawn, it's infectious, and then they give it back, and then I feel even better, and then we keep on going. But then when we're done, man, Zoom fatigue is real. Let me tell you, I can go all day long, and then as soon as we're done and I take the headphones off, it hits me all of a sudden, and I crash, but it's like a drug, a good drug, right? It makes you feel good. So again, I'm all over the map on that answer, but it's a touchy-feely kind of answer. Thank you for asking.
And thank you so much for your answer, and especially for the fact that what you are proving with yourself, even in this interview, is that we are in the online environment, but your emotions are real. Your optimism is real, and it can be sent to the world, to the listeners, to the viewers, even if it's just online, because we can see your face, we can see your smile, we can hear your voice, which then resembles all those positive feelings in
you. And it impacts them, right?
Yes, it does. Tye, thank you for being a speaker today, for letting us interview you on your thoughts and your insightful remarks on the mediation in the times of the pandemic. And that was a pleasure and an honor for us. And we are absolutely stunned with everything that you have shared with us. And thank you so much.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me. Thank you to Jeff and Mariana for being with us as well. Mac and Natalia, keep doing what you're doing. Natalia, like you said, the world is a smaller place. You're bringing it together, right? Keep this up. This was a pleasure. I loved it. This was so much fun, and I'm sorry that I have to go. I wish I could stay, but it was absolutely amazing. And great job. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Enjoy your day.
You as well.